Welcome to the SMITE God reveal for Amaterasu, the Shining Light. As the first rays of dawn cross the horizon, before all else they touch the land of the rising sun. That morning light which brings warmth and life is Amaterasu, the benevolent goddess of the sun. Universally, she is adored. Less so are her brothers, namely Susanoo, bringer of storms, whose jealousy of his sister's popularity drove him to burn her golden rice fields and shatter the sacred looms of her people. Grief-stricken at the destruction, Amaterasu sealed herself inside a deep cavern. Her people suffered, and the realm fell into crushing darkness. For an unknown time, she stayed there, hidden away from the atrocities of the world, until one day, a roar of celebration erupted from outside. Moving aside the great stone sealing the cavern, she peered cautiously out, catching a glimpse of an equally fair goddess in a gem-encrusted mirror. Amaterasu, driven by curiosity, ventured out to find the source of the joyous sound. Gathered around were hundreds of friends and loved ones. Atop a wide tub danced Usume, goddess of mirth, creating the erratic drumming to the joy of all. Amaterasu smiled, and light came back to the world. Seeing all those that depended on her, all those that loved her, Amaterasu vowed never again to hide away from calamity. She would instead face it, just as the dawn rises each new day. Amaterasu's passive is Illuminating Strike. Amaterasu illuminates enemies she hits with basic attacks. After 3 hits on the same target, the enemy is bathed in light, exposing their weaknesses and causing them to take more damage from all sources. Any other enemies that come near the illuminated enemy are exposed as well. Amaterasu's first ability is Divine Presence. Amaterasu harnesses the power of her jewel, healing herself over time and providing a buff to nearby allies. Her auras are always active, and every time this ability is activated, the auras switch between Valor and Benevolence. Valor provides bonus power, while Benevolence provides bonus movement speed. Heavenly Reflection is Amaterasu's second ability. Amaterasu charges her mirror for 5 seconds. While the mirror is charging, she takes decreased damage. Upon reactivation, or when the time runs out, the mirror will fire directly ahead of Amaterasu. The mirror will charge up from successfully attacking enemies or from taking damage, and can deal up to twice the base damage. Amaterasu's third ability is Glorious Charge. Amaterasu shines light off her sacred blade, silencing all enemies in front of her. She then dashes forward, dealing damage, piercing through the minions or stopping at the first god hit. Amaterasu's ultimate is Dazzling Offensive. Amaterasu focuses the power of the heavens into an impressive 3-strike combination attack. If at least one enemy is hit by a strike, each subsequent strike will become stronger. The second hit will deal extra damage and slow, while the third strike will deal even more damage and stun. Missing a strike on a single target will break the combo for that specific target. Amaterasu is a warrior who acts as a beacon for her team, providing support and turning the tides of battle using her divine weapons. With her jewel, she can provide allies with increased strength. Her mirror allows her to reflect damage back at enemies who choose to fight. And her sword shines bright, silencing enemies before a devastating dash. Amaterasu looks for the right time to go onto the offensive, dealing massive damage in front of her repeatedly, getting stronger with each strike. Look to pair Amaterasu with characters that can make use of her movement or power auras, such as Artemis, Thor, or Hercules. Amaterasu's players will need to be aware of how a battle is progressing to best use her skills. Knowing which aura to be using or when to activate your ultimate is key. Amaterasu's divine aura provides your team with extra mobility or power. When looking to engage an enemy team, look to have the movement speed aura to help your team get into position and engage faster than your opponents expect. Upon engaging, switch to power to help your team deal more damage to the enemy or even an objective if the fight is happening there. As the fight resolves, switch back to movement to either help allies flee or chase to finish the fight. While it may be tempting to use Glorious Charge for the damage against certain enemies, you may want to save this skill for the silence. This ability has a very quick activation, so it can be used to interrupt anything from slower abilities like Bellona's Cudgel or Thor's Berserker's Barrage to faster abilities like Agni's Flame Dash. Always be on the lookout to deny these abilities, as often this alone can win a battle. Heavenly Reflection pairs very well with Dazzling Offensive. Since Heavenly Reflection charges based on damage taken and damage dealt, activating Heavenly Reflection and then using Dazzling Offensive will allow you to chase targets and deal damage to them as the mirror is charging. Assuming Dazzling Offensive connects on all 3 hits, this should leave the target helplessly stunned, allowing the fully charged shield to connect easily. This can be a surprising amount of burst and can net you kills from players who aren't expecting it. Amaterasu and her team run into the enemy team near Fire Giant. Amaterasu uses her second ability to take decreased damage and ults in right away to disperse the enemy team, as well as hoping to stun enemies for Vulcan's incoming ultimate. Amaterasu secures her first kill with the second strike from her ultimate and her second kill with the third strike. She then uses Glorious Charge to get close to Janus and get the assist. Finally, Amaterasu switches her stance with her first ability, giving her allies the speed boost to finish Sobek. Amaterasu will want to start with Heavenly Reflection. This will give Amaterasu a powerful wave-clearing ability and poke tool if enemies choose to ignore Amaterasu. Follow this with a point in Divine Presence to gain extra utility and sustain. After putting an additional point into Heavenly Reflection, pick up Glorious Charge to gain the movement and silencing power of this skill. If you are fighting opponents that have interruptible abilities, like Bellona's Bludgeon or Tyr's Fearless, you may want to get Glorious Charge earlier to deny them their main clearing tool. After level 5, your priority will be Dazzling Offensive, then Heavenly Reflection, followed by Divine Presence, and finally, Glorious Charge. Amaterasu excels by being in the thick of fights, as well as switching her auras to suit the situation of the battle. As such, she will need to build a mixture of protections and cooldown reduction to really shine. Start off with Bluestone to help clear enemy minions, and move into Mystical Mail. Next, pick up Warrior Tabby and Frostbound Hammer. With these items, Amaterasu will now have movement, power, and survivability. With her core out of the way, move into items like Jotun's and Titan's Bane to assist her damage and give her cooldown reduction, allowing her to always be in the right aura when needed. Finally, replace Bluestone for an item like Void Shield when being aggressive, or Heartward Amulet when being defensive. Thanks for watching the Smite God reveal for Amaterasu.